Hello everyone, I'm going to introduce you all to the new Studio Web product, which is actually being rebranded as the Workflow Designer. This is our web-based version of the Studio product, which was a standalone application built on Silverlight. As many of you know, Microsoft is decommissioning Silverlight starting October of this year, and so we have migrated the product into a browser-based application, and I'm going to introduce you to that. You don't have to make any changes to your programs in order to use it. The only thing that's different here is some parts of the user interface work a little differently, so I'm just going to walk you through that. So let us first log in. Let's first start by opening an existing published campaign. So one difference is that instead of that straight line with elbows, we are connecting them directly over here. As you can see, as we click on each of the elements, the properties box is on the right. You can turn it off or on by clicking on those arrows over here. Similarly, you can turn off the toolbox also and bring it back on. So it works exactly the same way. Now note that there is no option to open up an inbound element here. So keep watching this space over here at the top right. When I click on a microsite, the microsite icon shows up, and then I can go in and I can work on all of the pages, just like we have been doing in the past. Obviously, the home page, flow, etc., those things are necessary. As you can see, show this page as home page only for flow conditions and so on and so forth. And for flow condition, we can see the same options here. In this case, it's a GERD page versus Perl page, but pretty much works the same way. Go back to the main campaign. I can click on the email, and you can see my email shows up here. The HTML for the email is over here, the from email, etc., all of those things. And we also have the schedule over here, where I can schedule an email just like we have done in the past. So let's now talk about a few other things. On the action, you can share with people, with other users that have access to this account, just here. And you can also clone the campaign, the entire program, or just the campaign, or just a selected element. Now, the other thing is, when I bring in a new element, I want to connect. Notice that the cursor changes to a pointer as well as to a hand sometimes. So when it changes to a hand, that's when you can connect it. And while connecting, it will also show you which ones you can connect to and which ones you cannot connect to. For example, you cannot connect to this one, which is another email, but you can connect an email to either a trigger or to a page. Now, I want to get rid of this page, this element, because I decided that I don't want it. All you have to do is press the delete button. Okay, so I have to get rid of all the connections first, select that, delete, and now this is standalone, select that, delete, it's gone. Okay, so the element will move when it turns into an arrow, and when it turns into a hand, that's the time to connect the element to something else. Okay, now let's talk about the rules. So I have rules here set up just like that. You select the rule group. Again, you can add your own rule groups like before, and inside the rule groups you can have different rules that you can set up. And again, it's the same way. The default rule for campaign name and dealership name, etc., we have some values and the rules set up here. Again, just the user interface looks a little different. It shows up on the side. Other than that, functionality is exactly the same as existing Studio. So let me now show you. I'm going to create a new program. So let's just bring in the contact list. Let's bring in the email and connect the email to the contact list. If I have it selected, there is an error here because I haven't configured the application. I have started working on it, but I haven't finished configuring, so it's not going to let me publish. At this point, if I try to publish, it's going to say, please fix the errors. And the error is that I haven't really configured the email element. Let me configure the contact list first. Contact list, it just works the same way again. I'm going to just use something simple like that, state equal to the state of California. And when I click on target contact, it shows me that there are 8 people matching that criteria. I can also set up the behavioral filter just the same way over here. However, my email is not set up, and I am out of time for today, and I don't want to set up the email right now. So what I need to do is I need to go to the properties box, and I'm going to put in a campaign name. Let's just call it test program 001. and I'm going to save it in the cloud instead of, because I cannot publish it. So save on cloud. I can also save it on my local drive, which some of you are familiar with, but save on cloud, save, and it's done. And I can now, I come back the next day, I log in, I start all over again, and now I can open the campaign, save new program, I can bring it back from the cloud, and you can see it's back. So this is a cool feature that you are now protected from publishing a campaign before you have actually completed this, which I think there was some issues with the older version of Studio where there are certain checks and balances were missing. Now we have a lot of checks and balances here that verifies if the program is valid before it lets you publish, so that your danger of sending out an email to a bunch of contacts prematurely eliminated. The other thing I want to talk about is about the email. When you get to scheduling part, I can pretty much add the same schedule the same way as you can see. Let me bring this over here. Contact list, that also. Now let's go to the email, go to the schedule part, and as you can see, I can check one or more of them to make them available to that specific email. So recurrence, schedule, putting in a time, all of those things are pretty much the same thing as before. I can schedule it for 12th at 9 a.m. in the morning, my time zone. Okay, so now with all that said, there's the approval button, check, uncheck, etc. Now there's a new thing here available which is called throttling, and the throttling allows you to scale up your email sent. Let's say you're sending email for a new customer using a new from domain that you've never used before, and you want to send 100,000 emails out. So if all of a sudden you send 100,000 emails out from a brand new domain, then there's a possibility that you may have deliverability issues. And so the whole ideal thing is to scale up, send in a small quantity in batches of small quantity, and slowly ramp up until you reach the desired volume. And this is what the throttling does. Next topic I would like to go to is the configuration management here, where you can add goals as before. There are your goals. Nothing is different here. It just looks a little different. Same thing by creating sub accounts. You can just add your own sub accounts, and again, nothing is different. You can clone from another account as before. This is a new feature where it shows actually the status of this particular program and this particular account. How many programs you have in this account, how many contacts, and so on and so forth. And finally, I come to the domain. Again, nothing is different here. You can add new domains as before. The domain needs to be pointed to you have done that in the past. There's a new button here called View Microsite URLs. This actually allows you, if you have used the subdomain in multiple programs through subdomains, then you can click on that and you can see that. So that's a very useful feature. A lot of times people have been trying to add domains and cannot add it because it's being used somewhere else, and this is the easy way to find it. I have actually skipped over user. Just adding a new user is as before, and is the same thing. People that are awaiting activation. Let's go over to contact management. Contact management, first change is that in the old Studio, we used to have two separate tabs, one for custom fields and one for standard fields. Here, everything is in one place, and you can switch through a drop down, and you can even select an all button where you can see all of these pages in one position. Okay, so that's one of the changes. Import progress is pretty much the same as before.